Well, hello. Welcome to this live stream on slowing down to speed up. Whether you're joining us live or the replay, we are so delighted that you're here. I have my amazing friend, Seema Sodha, all the way from the Netherlands to talk to me today on this topic on slowing down to speed up. So tell us, where are you from? Where are you tuning in? What's your profession? We want to hear from you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So hi, Seema. Thank you so much for being here today.
Diana, it's such an honor. That music that you were playing, I was jamming to it. It was so good.
It's the vibe, right?
It is.
It's the energy. So, guys, I have my dear friend Seema here today, and I've known Seema for over a decade. I love her. I adore her. She is a leadership trainer, certified leadership trainer, leadership coach and global trainer, and a spiritual guide. She is highly intuitive and creative and fun. She's my go-to friend for whenever I need some creativity, fun, flow, tapping into our intuitions. Whenever I have a big talk or training, I always go to Seema to co-create together. And I'm so delighted that she's here with us today to talk about this topic. And Seema, why don't we start with what fulfills you?
Digging right in, Diana. Oh my goodness, what fulfills me? First of all, I just want to say it's fulfilling to be here, seeing the people coming in from Toronto and all these other places. And what fulfills me? So I'm going to go with what's here present for me right now. Sitting and chatting with a friend with a fleece blanket. What fulfills me are moments where I am unexpectedly surprised by a call or a friend or a special note that I've received from somebody. What fulfills me is cozy nights by the fire, just snuggling up, whether it's to the blanket or to my husband. And actually, as I'm noticing, like with all these things, I'm noticing the connection is connection, something that just has me feel connected.
Oh, that's a common value that you and I share, right? Of the core values of connection and just authenticity, inspiration. Yeah. I'm curious to hear from your perspective of why it's so important to really honor our values.
That's a good question. It's funny. It's like the first phrase that comes up is why not? And what I mean by that is, in a world where there's so much noise, there's so much distraction, there are so many opinions and perspectives. Honoring our values is a way to ensure that we are aligned with what is true to us, a way to show up in a way that is authentic, as you already mentioned, is one of our values. And ultimately, we know that a life lived that is fulfilling is one when we are in honor with our values.
Yeah, that is so true. One of my core values is connection. And this is why during this pandemic, I've been facilitating online networking events. And I also crave that connection. And I love seeing people connect with each other, seeing that their eyes lit up, seeing them more confident. It just feels so good.
Yeah. And even for you and I, so connection is one value that we share. If it makes such a difference. So imagine us coming onto a call together, not having any clue about what value we're honoring. It could be a good call, but if you add the fact that, and we know we have a value for connection, and it's because of that we are having this call, it just has a deeper sense of meaning or... Right? Like, what would you say is different? It's like more depth to it or
more alignment.
Yeah.
More alignment. And we just get each other, right? I want to kick off a story before we dive into this topic here of the topic of slowing down to speed up. Seema and I, a year ago, decided to co-create a women's luxury retreat. That was supposed to be happening in April in Mexico, but it got canceled because of the pandemic. However, we just had this, I don't know about you, for me, I was seeing this theme of people were working like crazy hours and feeling burnt out and feeling unfulfilled. I had friends who were turning 40 and feeling that like, is this it? Like, what's really next? And so we decided to come up with this retreat, which is all around slowing down to speed up. So I want to dive in here and talk about how slowing down helps you achieve your goals more quickly. Yeah. what's your perspective on that? Or first of all, let's talk like, why is that important and how it can actually help us achieve our goals?
Yeah. So here's what happens, right? So even right now, as you're saying that, I'm even noticing by nature of the title of the talk, there is a pace that we have that's a little bit more slower, a little bit more rhythmic. And what that allows for is, in addition to a sense of presence, it allows us to really listen deeply.
Yeah.
And as a result, if we are listening deeply, we're able to catch things that we may not be able to catch if we're traveling at lightning speed. And so when I think about achieving our goals, one way of achieving our goal is simply to get it done. That's a way, and sometimes we need to go that way. But I know from clients and from our own experiences, a much more fulfilling and resonant way is to have the goal as a target, but to really slow down to enjoy the journey along the way.
Enjoy the journey.
So listen to this. So check this out. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had an experience where you've been working towards something and you actually get that thing, but it wasn't as exciting as you thought it would be? Or it wasn't as exciting as the idea of having it was?
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about buying. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I hear it all the time from my high achievers, like the clients. They work towards this goal and it's like, I don't feel anything, or I don't feel excited or proud, or like what's next? What's my next thing?
Exactly.
So what you're saying is like not enjoying that process or that moment of achieving that goal.
That's it. Whether it's a project on our plate or we're searching for a new job, I really believe that everything that comes on our path is for the sake of experiencing it and then the end result. But if we can cultivate an experience of joy and, again, this presence, which comes when we slow down to receive all the goodness that's coming into our path along the way, then not only is the end result exciting, the way to there is exciting.
Yeah, I love that. Is enjoying. I love it. Do you guys resonate with any of this? Like, feel free to chime into the chat room here. I love that, which ties into our next topic here is it's around how to pace the speed of your work, right? Instead of really like go, or I got to get this done, or got these deadlines. And I hear this a lot right now, Seema, with a lot of my clients who are working and looking to make a change. They feel so much pressure from the external world, expectations from their boss, from at home, the kids, and it feels like they can't really escape or make a change, or they may feel guilty to make a change during times like this. And, I've been talking about this, it's important to take a step back.
Yeah.
Set boundaries and make time for yourself, self-care before anything else.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. And by the way, as Diana's speaking, if you all have ideas of how you would pace the speed of your work, put those in the chat. We're really curious to hear.
Yeah.
I love this, Diana, what you're saying about boundaries. So that really comes up for me. And it was funny. I was writing about this today, this idea of, if it is that I'm going to choose, let's say in wintertime, I know that my pattern shifts. I have a little bit of a different cycle. And so if I know that, for example, I'm getting up slightly later, instead of saying, and therefore I'm going to squeeze all those same 10 items into the less number of hours, what am I going to get rid of? So boundaries also comes in play when we speak about what are we saying no to. And that's the skill, or that's the step I feel like even with my own clients, they miss. So they take on something new, but they haven't yet taken anything off.
Yes, letting go.
Letting go. Right.
Letting go of something. You're absolutely right. You got to let go in order to bring in the new as well.
That's it. And so then probably the question is what? How do you determine what to let go? So Sky here is saying boundaries help prioritize. And that's the next bit. So how do we know what to let go of? Well, prioritizing, but also linking to what you said, Diana, doing it based on our values. So this idea of inside out.
Oh, Tell me more. Inside Out. What is that?
Okay. So it's a movie. That's not the version. That's not the one I'm talking about. It is a great movie, though. It is this idea. So if we look at adult stages of development, we go through this series of progression as we develop in life, where we're initially operating from the outside in. So people around us, our culture around us, they sort of dictate what is approved and what is not approved. They determine what is it that is seen as valid and what is not. And that's a natural stage of development. But there comes a moment in adult development where you have to ask yourself, well, what is it that I want? What is it that I value? What is my vision? And from there, what are the actions and the choices I'm going to make? So Inside Out is this idea of being so clear of what is important to you on the inside, values, like you talk a lot in your work about passions, interests, genius, and then design your actions from there. Choose your prioritization from there. Say yes and no based and aligned to that.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to chime in on this because something I'm noticing, because we all know how important clarity is or what's important to you, the inside. But one thing I'm noticing sometimes is some of my clients I see that have a difficult time in terms of claiming or choosing, like, this is what I want. And instead of saying, well, I really just don't know what I want, or I'm not sure what it is. But I feel like there is this fear of just claiming, like, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is what's important to me. I wonder if you have any tips around just, I guess, owning it, like owning this is who I am and this is what I want. And versus saying, like, I really just don't know and afraid to make that choice.
It's such a good question. And the first thing that comes up is I'll never forget one of my very first leadership coaches. The advice that she gave me was stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about others.
Oh.
And here's the context, okay? And this is coming from someone who myself has gone through this journey, and still, as I'm growing, I have to go through this phase of am I claiming it and not. When it gets tricky is when I'm only thinking about myself, my fears, my distractions, my insecurities, okay? And then all of a sudden, even energetically, I can feel myself going, like, shrinking. But as soon as I make it about something you talk a lot about, who am I serving? What is the difference I want to make? What is the vision that I have for the world? Then that becomes a pull. And so we're no longer pushing ourselves to go and make something happen. We're not faking it till we make it, but we're literally being pulled out of bed. And if we can make that vision so big, bigger than our fears, then it's like, there's no more work. There's no effort.
Make your vision bigger than your fear.
That's
That
it.
is something I've talked to my client about. Make your why bigger than your fear. Make the reason bigger than your fear to motivate you to go after what truly matters, right? And I love what you're saying is it's less about focusing on us, but the others or the impact, right? That's one of the questions I love talking about. Is like, what's the impact you want to make in this world?
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, this is so good. All right. What? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say the other almost practical thing, because I know that we have achievers on the call and you and I also identify with that. The other practical way around pacing the speed of your work is using the Pomodoro technique. So this idea of breaking up your time into 20 to 25 minute chunks. And after each 25-minute chunk, you take a break. And then again, we're bringing in that idea of we're achieving, we are getting things done, but we're taking a break, whether that is to see your kids. I mean, people working from home to play with them, or to go for a brief walk or stretch. It's one of the great ones.
I love that. I have these, so I love, like, even just having a break in between my morning afternoons where I have like that 90-minute like lunch break, whether, I take the full lunch break or not, at least I have that time to just clear my mind, whether it's meditation, journaling, listening to some like good music and dancing in my office.
Absolutely.
Or making like a quick phone call, to someone I care about, whatever that is, but just breaking it out my day. I find that it really helps increase my energy level there.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Oh, this is so good. All right, so let's see the child. What do we have here? Debbie says, I like to allow for short interruptions for my kids. So I'll have a little fun and get a quick energy boost to continue working perspective for a new approach to something. Absolutely, right? Getting that inspiration from kids is great there. That creativity. I actually just did a post this morning around how being more childlike will help you with your imagination and creativity and curiosity.
So I'll tell you, here's a tip. I just bought a trampoline to ignite the child in me. So even that jumping on the trampoline every now and then for a break, I do it every morning, but also during the day. Why not?
I want one of those. You know who has? I know like a lot of some speakers have, like Tony Robbins has it, I
Yeah.
believe. Like he has a trampoline. I think
Yeah.
Brandon Burchard, I think he has something like, or he just jumps up and down. Like
That's it. Yeah. I bought it after the Tony Robbins, after the UPW. I was like, all right, it's time.
I need to get one of those. I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's move into our next one is around how to set the right attention and intention. So I love whenever I work with my clients on like preparing for something big, like an interview or a meeting, I always like to get them to set that intention because the intention sets the attention that you want to put forth of the discussion as well. So I'm curious to know if you have any like techniques that you want to talk about the importance of setting the intention to set yourself up for success.
So it's an interesting one because it's evolved over the years. Intention setting for me used to be really about checking in, how do I feel right now, and what is the energy that I want to be bringing across. And that's quite similar to what you have done with me as well. And now, again, that idea of including the global perspective. So it's about me and the we. There's two parts to it now. So the first part is, what is it that I want to be bringing to this conversation, to this interview, to this coaching? And at the same time, what is it that is wanting to be brought through me? So it's a bit of a word twist, but it's this idea of we aren't separate from those around us. Like separation is an illusion, I believe. And if we really believe that everything is energy, and I do, and we are all connected, then it's this balance between what is it that I want for this? How do I want to show up? And how do others want me to show up? Like what are others needing for me or what's wanting to come through? Does that make sense? I'm saying
Yeah. So that's like thinking it from another perspective as well. It's not just thinking from that me perspective, but thinking about from the other perspective, like what is it that they need or want from me?
And in doing so linking to this idea of slowing down to speed up, it requires us to actually check in and listen or hear that response. So it's not such a cerebral thing. And so it's a cerebral thing when we ask, what's my intention? Because it's coming from me.
Yeah.
But the other version is like, what is being called from me? What is needed from me? So whether we call it universe or whatever other language you want to use around that, there is this global tapping in.
Yes, the intuition. Like I feel like that's what we're talking about is tapping into the intuition. And maybe I'll share a little story. Like I felt like recently, some of you know, like I'm running my first ever career relaunch summit next Thursday and Friday. And it was just about 2 weeks ago, I felt called, like I just had this calling. I don't know how to describe it. I woke up one morning feeling called to make a difference in a big way. And I don't know what it was. I just woke up feeling that way. And I journaled about it and like, what does this really mean to me? And for me, it was like, I felt like it was more than just me, like more than just me serving or making an impact. And I just tapped into like, what did that really meant? And for me, like it just came up, okay, well, why don't I bring together a group of people to give back? And I don't know how to describe it. It was just a feeling of looking at, I guess, like the calling that I felt there.
Yeah. That's it. That's the beauty. So this whole thing is about what are the benefits of slowing down? And I believe that's it. You needed to be in a particular state of being in order to receive that message. Intuition, gut feeling, whatever we want to call it. And look at this, in a matter of 2.5 days, you've lined up an amazing panel of speakers. It's of service, but it's like it's almost, if I can use the word, it's almost as if you were a channel for something that wanted to come through.
Wow.
And so what does that do?
That sounds so powerful when you said
Yeah.
that. It just felt so powerful.
Mm.
And it's interesting, as you were talking about this, I'm thinking about, my the audience here
Mm.
is, sometimes we may have this, but then there may this fear, like I could have overthought about this. I'm like, oh my God,
Yes.
I've never done this before. I don't know if these speakers will say yes. I have never done something this big before. I could have been like all these fears and saboteurs of
Yes.
going through it instead of taking action. Instead, I just decided to take action and figure out along the way. I had it somewhat a plan, but not a whole plan blown out. And I guess the topic comes here now. Let's deal this, which I've been hearing a lot, is those limiting beliefs. How to let go of your limiting beliefs, or how to identify what those saboteurs are, letting go of that. And this ties into my recent talk on overcoming imposter syndrome, feeling, not enough, or there's inadequacy, and this impacts confidence, impacts the way we show up in the world, impacts the way we, in the job search world, excelling ourselves effectively there. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
want to hear your perspective in terms of this whole dealing with this monkey mind and the saboteurs there.
Well, the first thing is what you started already alluding to, which was having an awareness that we have this thing separate from us called a saboteur or a gremlin or whatever language we want to use around that. That's the first step, because so often, especially those who are new to coaching, a lot of my work is around having them catch themselves when they're speaking from I, as in the powerful self, the leader in me, versus the part of me that is the defeatist, is the one that says, I can't or you shouldn't. And it shows up in language. So the first is having the awareness that, oh, wait a minute, I am not my doubts. Powerful me, are not my fears. That is a part of me, but I can separate the two. It's almost like this surgery we need to do between ourselves and our voices that hold the fears.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then once you have that, it's digging deep, Diana. I mean, half of these fears, they're outdated. They're outdated. They didn't grow up. Our limiting beliefs, they didn't grow up as we grew up. And so we need to do the digging to identify what is it that's actually going on underneath this.
Yeah.
And is it actually still true? Is it really true that it's still a fear of mine? What happened to me in grade 5, is that still what I'm afraid of? Is it true that that's going to happen again?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I say
Yeah.
that because our fears typically they're born when we were young.
That's such a good point. And that's something you have to really recognize, like, where that source, the fear is actually coming from, and what
Yeah.
may be holding us back, right?
And really check it out.
Yeah.
Like, I almost feel like saying we really need to be a little bit like not strict with it, investigative, like
Yeah.
really checking it out. Like, is that true fear? Like, is it really true I'm going to get ridiculed if I'm on this summit? Maybe, but what's
Mhm.
another truth? And bringing again that perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, you just something just I felt here is that something I've been hearing a lot is this fear of you just being seen.
Yeah.
Fear of even just going on camera. Like, in
Yeah.
the virtual world right now, a lot of people need to do virtual interviews, and
Mm,
there's fear of just speaking, in front of camera and
yeah.
being seen. And there's something, I don't know, there must be like an internal, another fear that they have is just being seen or being judged.
Yeah, 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 and
Yeah,
it's so common, and it's something I have and have had, and first things first, practice, right?
yeah,
The more we do something, the easier it is. And one really cool exercise your clients could do is if, for example, let's take this fear as an example, fear of being seen. Keep asking yourself, so what's the risk? Like, if I was seen, what is actually the risk? So if you play with me here, Diana, if I
yeah,
ask
yeah,
you, if you just like role play,
yeah,
imagine you have a fear of being seen on camera.
yeah.
What's the risk if you're seen on camera?
Embarrassing myself.
Okay. And so let's imagine just for a moment that were true, that you embarrassed yourself on camera. What's the
Yeah.
biggest worry or risk?
That might impact my reputation,
Mm-hmm.
credibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that may impact, people may talk about me or make fun of me or
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
And
Yeah.
so all of a sudden, notice how even the tone of voice has gone down, it's gone a little bit deeper. And so this exercise is helping us to get down underneath of what is actually it really about. So imagine now, we could still go deeper, but imagine we stopped here and all of a sudden we have a belief, which basically so far is, if I am seen, I will lose credibility.
Mm-hmm.
Then the question for you is that really true? Is it really true that if you're seen, you will lose credibility?
No. If anything, now that you're asking me like that, like people think that I'm brave and courageous.
Right.
So I just, the way you asked, I'm like, that's another perspective to look at.
And so the question is like, can we know with 100% certainty that if you're seen, you lose credibility? No, because you just said, well, actually, what could also happen is people see me as brave. So now you've identified this is an outdated belief, because a belief is an equation. A belief is this equals this. It's just an equation. If I do this, then this. So now that you know it's outdated, now you get to go test it out. So for your clients, if they do this, now they get to go test out that belief by making small baby steps. Show up on a live stream for 5 seconds and turn it off and see what the impact is. Then do 10 seconds or do mock interview. You know, these kinds of things. So it's all about checking, is it really true?
Is it really true?
And then when you discover it's not, because most of the time it's not, then you play with it.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is also, it's experimenting, right? It's testing, challenging the belief. Like, is it really true?
Yeah.
And asking it again and asking from another perspective to see like, hey, what's another perspective here? Like, is it really that risky?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You got it. And I love the energy that you just shared it in, because it is about the more we can have fun with it and almost be cheeky, like, really? I'm going to check that out. I'm not like, it's almost being firm with our limiting beliefs. Like, I'm not going to take that for face value anymore, because I have this vision. I've got things to do. I've got things to solve and serve in the world, you know?
Yeah. Actually, can we play around with another topic here? This is so good because I think it's a big one is, so many people have lost their jobs. And a lot of times people attach their identity to their careers and jobs. And studies have actually shown that during this pandemic, like those who lost their job, that they tend to hide or hibernate themselves where they don't want to talk to anyone because they feel there's this inadequacy or feel embarrassed to let people know that they lost their job. And so I wonder if we can maybe explore that further to just help unpack that feeling of like, I lost my job and therefore think that, people think that I'm no longer worthy or valuable or, just, feeling just the embarrassment there.
Yeah. I mean, first, I just want to acknowledge how much I can have compassion for that place in life, because it is a delicate place. It's a vulnerable place. I've been there when I left corporate and all of a sudden I was no longer my title. I didn't have a title except for the one I made up myself. And so there's something, right? I mean, ultimately.
So much better. So much cooler.
It totally is. And there is something to say though, so again, slow down before we speed up, or in order to speed up, first acknowledging that, wow, something has happened in my life that has created a massive shift that I never expected nor planned for. And giving yourself that grace period to be in that place of sadness. Maybe there's guilt. Often what I hear, and I'm wondering if this is for you too, underneath is shame.
Yeah. I felt that when I lost my job almost 10 years ago. I felt shame, embarrassment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Those emotions. Like it was an emotional roller coaster.
That's it. And the shame. So something I love that Brene Brown talks about a lot is shame's best friend is silence. So shame thrives in silence. In other words, when you keep it to yourself, shame grows bigger. And it's so counterintuitive. But the minute we feel shame, so she talks about having your list of 5 friends or 5 people that you know you can count on, that you can speak to, that if you have a shame storm, as she says,
Yeah.
you can say, all right, you know what? I need to talk about this. And so the sooner you talk about it, the sooner you reveal that part of you, the less power shame has. And so
So
whether
it's like
that's
shedding. I'm feeling like the
yes,
shedding it, right? Letting go of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then exactly when you just did that, like there's a shedding, then things start moving, things start opening up. All of a
Mm.
sudden, here's the other beautiful thing that happens. All of a sudden, your friend or whoever you've spoken to says, you know what, I understand that feeling of shame. And maybe they share a story that they've had. Then you realize I'm not alone. And so all of a sudden, that heavy limiting belief of you're not good enough or whatever those voices are, they start to lose their power. They start to
Yeah.
unravel.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I love this because this is part of then it's processing it, talking to
Yes.
people about it, and
Yes.
knowing that you're not alone,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
This happened to me the other day. May I share a short story?
Yeah.
So what was it now? I had done a live. Oh, I know. I was doing some Instagram lives for an organization, and it was on mindfulness. And it wasn't that the topic itself was new to me, but for whatever reason, I all of a sudden, when I ended the live, I just felt incredibly vulnerable. And I know this pattern of mine. I first feel it in my body. I start to do this. And then the thought that comes is, I need to hide. Like I literally have this thought that says, I need to hide. And all I want is my bed, a blanket, and something to go over my head. Okay.
Yeah.
And because I had no more client calls, I allowed that to myself. So I did. So I literally went downstairs, got out of my business clothes, put on some PJs. I went into bed and I crawled in. But here's the thing, I know that if I just stayed there, it would have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. This feeling of shame and embarrassment that was completely ungrounded in anything. So as soon as I got into,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead. Go
Can I
ahead.
ask why you felt that? Like, why did you felt that way, the shame? Because you did a talk, which was helping others.
It's
What
helping
was it?
others.
Yeah, it was helping others.
It's a good
And
question.
yeah, like what was it? I'm curious to know. Like,
It's a good question. So here's what my triggers can be. It's when because it was on Instagram, there's no live feedback. And I'm someone who, like with you right now, I can interact with you. We can chat.
yeah.
We've got chat box going here. I can see people's comments, right? Whereas for some reason, if I don't have any feedback, then there's nothing for me to bounce off against. So the thought that came
Ah,
up was that was that good? Did it add value? Was I serving? And for whatever reason, I probably wasn't centered now that I think about it in myself and my vision and my value. And so I was wobbly to begin with.
yeah.
And therefore, this came in.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I wonder, and I'm hearing that those who are here, like listening to this, like, do you feel this way? Like when you're going
Mm,
for, let's say, an interview, a presentation,
yeah.
after that, like how do you feel? And it's just so common because sometimes we psych ourselves out.
Yes. Yes.
We psych ourselves out
Yeah.
of over analyzing or being highly critical because we're as a high achievers, we're like, I don't know if that was good enough, or questioning. And it's something I always talk about is we need to honor ourselves,
Mm,
even just celebrate honoring, like, I'm proud that I did this.
yes. Yeah.
I'm proud for showing up. I'm proud of that for giving my best.
Yeah. Yes. And Diana, it's like, okay, so do this with me. So raise your right hand, lean forward, and do one of these. Like this, like this is what our
Give
high
yourself a
achievers
pat on
need
the
to
back,
do. It
right?
is. This is the thing, because we are, as achievers, we're always searching for the next thing. We know that. That's okay as long as we're doing these in between.
Yeah. Honoring, celebrating that, being proud of that. Right? We're
Yes.
so hard on ourselves. Oh, we haven't achieved this goal. We haven't done this, but it's that journey of like the progress that you are making.
Especially because we are always going to be the ones to ask, how can I do it better, faster, and stronger next time?
Yeah.
Those are the 3 questions we ask, right? How can I do it better? How can I do it faster? And let's say stronger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so importance of acknowledging self, acknowledging our accomplishments. And just to close off that shame story, because I know my pattern, I called my sister and I said, I need you to listen to me. Here's what I'm feeling. And as I was speaking it out, it dissipated. It lost its power.
Wow. So talking to someone actually really helps, right? Someone who
does.
you trust, who understands you. Like I
Yes.
know you and I seem like we check in with each other all the
Yes.
time. We'll support each other and hold each other's space to let us process whatever emotion and
Yeah.
energy, and that we feel better afterward.
Yeah. And do you remember even there was a significant deepening in our relationship when we started sharing the things that were not working so well and the things that
Yeah.
we were nervous about? And it was like, I remember even feeling, this is years ago, but even thinking, oh, thank goodness. Okay. We're both human. We all, have these fears.
Exactly. Absolutely. I totally remember that. Yeah.
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 I would say you've really supported me in helping me think about how I show up as a speaker.
Mm,
Because for the longest time, and I've shared a little bit about this, is that I was always afraid of public speaking because English is not my first language. So I
right.
would overthink about it and think about how it needs to be perfect in terms of the script. So I would have a script to follow. And something shifted for me once I decided that it was not about me, but about the impact. It
Yeah.
shifted. I started speaking from my heart versus my head.
Yeah. That's it. Oh, yeah.
That's what shifted for me. What was that? Like trusting myself more, even though I know I'm not perfect. I
Mm,
notice even myself right now in some of my talks, there are certain words I have trouble pronouncing, or
mm.
I'm not enunciating as correctly. And I try not to be too hard on myself because I'm like in
Yeah.
the moment
Yes.
of it. I
Yes.
just have to
Great.
go with the flow versus be like, "Oh, I didn't say that
Yeah.
properly there."
Yeah. And even like how human would it be if even during the talk, and I think you've done this before, when you mispronounce something, you say, okay, well, that wasn't actually correct, but you know what I mean. So that's another trick. Even like, let's say in interviews, I'm wondering what your perspective on this would be, but what about in an interview, if someone is fumbling across their words, they just say, you know what? That's not actually what I wanted to say. Let me just pause for a moment and begin again.
Yeah,
How
that
would that
sounds
go
so
over, do you think?
courageous. That
Mm,
sounds so courageous. And you know what happens, right? Especially for interviews, nerves. I have people told me like they freeze before an interview or they had to cancel last
yeah.
minute because they just froze. And one thing I always talk about is just practice breathing. Like breathe,
Mm,
just calm, you're centered and grounded. And it's okay to have silence. Let's go back to slowing down, is to get grounded and centered of, what are you trying to say?
yeah.
And it's okay to ask the interviewer, like, asking them to rephrase a question, right? Repeat the
Yes.
question, or you
Yeah,
can rephrase the question,
yeah.
clarify what they are looking for,
Mm,
or you can acknowledge, like, that's a good question. I don't have an answer yet.
yeah.
How about we get back to that question later on? Let me just give it some thought here.
Oh, that's great.
Right? So it's
And
okay
what
if
do
you
you
don't have the answer.
Yeah, and so I'm curious, what do you think we people need to believe about ourselves in order to say that? Like,
Mm,
you know? So what
yeah, yeah,
would imagine I was going for an interview, what would I need to believe about myself or about people that would allow me to say, "I don't have the answer to that, actually."
yeah. I think one is believing that you believe that you do have value to offer. That's a huge one.
Mm,
Believing you do
mm,
have something great to offer. I think that's number one. And
mm,
second, in the belief, it's goes back to authenticity, that you are showing up as
mm.
your authentic self. You're
Yeah.
not trying to be someone else or trying to be
Mm,
perfect. People
mm,
do value it's going back to the human connection, the authenticity, that
mm,
vulnerability as well.
mm.
It's okay to say, I don't know, I don't have the answer.
Yeah. I love that you shared that because it's making me think about even in the leadership space now, there's this big shift from what we would call, let's say, command and control, where the one at the top has to have all the answers and then just dictates it down, to actually moving away from that and going to more of a collaborative leadership style. And that
Mhm.
means that knowledge alone is no longer the number one skill that leaders need to have. In fact, said in another way, that's almost an assumption that you have
Yeah,
the knowledge. But how much more powerful is it to ask the questions, to not know? How much more beautiful are the solutions when you can have diverse perspectives and have other
yeah,
people chiming in, And so this it's
it's
almost
true.
like I wouldn't say we've gone away from needing to know things. I would say we are starting to add now the concept of not needing to know everything. And in fact,
Yeah.
that's even better.
Yeah, that's so true. Actually, on the topic of leadership here, because I know you do a lot of leadership training for organizations, I'm curious to know how can leaders really thrive in today's virtual workplace? How can they be more connected to their team members as well? So one thing I do hear a lot, there's two different sides. Like one, I'm hearing some friends tell me that now they spend majority of the time checking in with their team members, like really checking in to see how they're doing right now, because we don't get to see them. Right. And then I hear the other side where people feel like they don't feel appreciated or valued, or because they're working from home now, it's expected so much more from them. And they're being contacted like 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a great question. And I think there's no one answer. The framework that I keep leaning back into is so that right in alignment with our topic today, leaders need to be able to find themselves in the eye of the storm. So finding that place of center, first and foremost, so that rather than themselves getting swept up and caught up in everything that's swirling around them, they're able to come from that grounded center place where they have access to all sorts of ideas, but also access to their hearts, which is how they can then connect with their teams. If a leader is calm and centered, their being is going to have an impact on those around them. And so, as you said, I'm hearing a lot of leaders now needing to reach out, needing to have those, whether it's a WhatsApp chat, checking in with their team, or having an actual call. And it also then leads to how their role is shifting to be the one that empowers others. And so another skill that leaders are required to have now is the coaching skill. The coaching skills of, right? Like deep listening, asking powerful questions. What does that bring up for you?
Well, it's the curiosity. It's showcasing that you care, right? They're just saying that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right. And so this, when we talk about coaching, it's about curiosity. It's about showcasing interest. It's about caring, like just asking, like, how are you doing?
Yeah. And ultimately, for the sake of, just like in coaching, our role is to create, what's that phrase? It's to create capability, not dependency. And it's the same as the leader. So as a leader takes on a coach-like role and asks questions to their teams, like, so, whether that's, how are you feeling, but also beyond that, how could you find your center more? What are the things that you could do to feel more calm, to feel more connected? All of a sudden, you're helping them come up with the answers, which then develops capabilities. And so I think like it's crazy what's happening right now. And I really think we are being called to usher forward a new way of interacting, a new way of leading, and a new way of a deeper sense of empowering.
I totally agree. And this is where, going back to the inside out approach that you've been talking about, it's tapping into that inner wisdom. And in order to do that, we need to feel more grounded and centered. We need to slow down and pause, right? And so this is a great one to wrap up. And I know this is one of your favorite topics, is like how to find your flow. Right? So through slowing down to speed up, like how do you really find that flow?
Oh my goodness. I mean, how long do you have?
I know it's getting late for you.
So. Yeah. I'll tell you where I am today with this. And it's different from how I would have answered this a year ago and even 6 months ago. How you find your flow is tapping into your body. And so I've learned a lot about embodiment these months. And there was a really great embodiment summit that happened. And what I mean by tapping into your body is it is always telling us something. It is telling us if we're in a place of too much. It is telling us if we're in a place of too little. It is telling us if we're overwhelmed or if we're bored. We'll all have signs in our body, whether that's speaking faster, breathing faster, stress in the gut, whatever that might be. And so the first way to find your flow is to first check in, am I in flow? And actually, maybe even a better question is, what am I in flow with? And here's what I mean by that. We often think of flow the way it was originally defined by Csikszentmihalyi, which is about being in that zone where we're like, we have access to all the wisdom, and time passes without us even noticing it. That's a way. The addition I want to add to that is we're always in flow. The difference is either we're in flow with what we want or what we don't want. A state that is serving us or a state that's not serving us.
Yeah.
So step one, check in. Step 2, if you're not happy with where you are, so let's say I am in a place of anxiety and I'm about to go for a job interview, then do something to change your state. And we've talked about that. That can be jumping up on your trampoline. That can be taking deep belly breaths, like you said. That can be doing a meditation or a short 2-minute mindfulness exercise where you're focusing on the present moment, and you will find your flow.
Yeah.
And then from there, momentum takes you from there.
Yeah. Just what you said here, I find when you're distracted or when you have a lot on the go, it's actually really hard to be in flow state.
Yeah.
Right. And this is why I always talk about how, like, if you have something big happening, let's say in the interview, I always tell my clients, like, don't pack yourself up with, full meeting days, because you get all this download of information, demands from people.
Yeah.
It impacts your flow, your energy, and all that.
Yes.
Right. Like, you need to make space. And this is what part
That's
of
it.
slowing down is by making that space.
Yeah.
That's when you can really slow down and be grounded and centered.
I love that. I love that. And that again is inside out. Like these distractions. Like if I had to add to what you just said, before you go to an interview, do nothing except for anything that gets you centered. No phone calls, no emails, no social media. Maybe text Diana. I don't know if you offer that service, like for a quick pep talk, or go over your notes, right? Go over your prep. But actually, like there's really, it's one of the best moments to not have outside influence, because like you said, it pulls you out of your zone.
It pulls you out of your zone. That's it, right? It's all about staying grounded and center. And I'll share with you, like, whenever I do have like a big talk, like, I actually try not to have meetings that day or that morning if I don't have to. I make space for that, because then I'm in my own zone, and it gives me that inspiration, creativity of what I want to share. Like, I get these like downloads of like stories or messages that I want to share. And I find it's much more impactful. I'm much more high energy as well.
So I'll ask you a question on that.
Yep.
So that I make up implies that you trust that will happen, that downloads will come if you give yourself that space. How would you say people can start to build that trust?
That's a good question. Yes, it's trusting that. And I think that has to come with, there's a level of certainty of believing what you want, like what your message and your voice, right? Believing that it matters. And I think part of one is journaling, like journaling the thoughts as well, to develop that trust, to see if there's like a consistency or pattern there, right? The other is, if I think about from the perspective, like trusting in terms of your own value, is really think about the impact that you have, right? The impact that you have there. I'm really big on affirmations. Like whenever, let's say if I am feeling a little like that negative thought or mind, I change it instantly. And I like to come up with I am statements. Like I am this, or I am this. I have, and I know, Seema, you have just showing like those affirmation cards that you get me, right? Like before this show, we got like, I make time to recharge my battery. The world needs my energetic light. And just like that, just shifting that perspective helps me instantly go from that negative, like, oh, I don't know if I should say this, or no, that's not good enough, to something better. Or like I have this, one of my favorite cards here is, when I shine bright, I give others permission to shine with me.
Oh, that's nice.
Right? So it's just a reminder of the shifting that perspective to, it's not about me, it's about others. It's about serving, right? And also I talk a lot about this, is that instead of feeling you have to sell yourself, think of from the perspective how you're helping someone or an organization.
Oh, I love that. And the third one, maybe you can add, that just came up for me, was think about how you show yourself.
Yes.
Because isn't that it? Like, we're not trying to
be what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, you're not trying to be anybody else. It's like you're revealing yourself. You're showing yourself. And if it's a match, great. If not, great.
Yeah.
If anybody else has any affirmations they love, put them in the chat. That would be fun to see.
I actually love doing the being and doing exercise. Like, what are you saying yes to being? What are you
Mm.
saying no to being? Right? Like, no to being
Mm.
timid, no to being, hesitant, yes to being confident, yes to being enthusiastic. And then what are you saying yes to doing? And what are you
Mm.
saying no to doing?
Oh, that's
Right? So I
great.
say yes to telling great stories. I
Yeah.
say no to ums and ahs.
That's good. Unless I
Right?
make it obvious and say, sorry, I'm saying lots of ums and ahs.
It's such a simple exercise, but it's so powerful because it reminds you, what do I need to let go of
Mm.
in order to step into my best self?
Mm. And so I'm hearing choice. You're
Yeah.
choosing how you want to show up. And that's also the gift of that slowing down, that you actually become at choice instead of being on autopilot and having the outside world run you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
Mhm.
to wrap up, I'm curious to know, guys, like, what are your key takeaways here? What are some of your
Mhm.
biggest takeaway from today's talk? It was so fun. I love that it was in flow of the
Mm.
conversation and it was perfect. And thank you so much, Seema. This was a
Mhm.
lot of fun. I hope that you guys got a lot of value from this.
Mhm.
And before we wrap up, I do want to take a moment to share about my upcoming Career Relaunch Summit next week on December 17th to 18th. And it's basically all day from 9:45 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And Seema Sodha is going to be there as my guest on day 2. He's going to kick things off with me. What's your topic, Seema? We're going to talk about
Oh my gosh, what's the topic name? I forgot the title. Do you remember?
unleashing your career
Yes.
purpose for greater joy and impact.
That's
Oh, it's so
it.
juicy. Unleashing your greater purpose for career purpose for greater joy and impact.
Mm.
And this is my way of giving back in a big way this holiday season. I have gathered over 15 plus career and leadership development experts to come and talk about a topic of their interest and their expertise. So we have topics around mindset, career clarity, resumes, networking, interviews, job search. So we're going to talk about that. And it would be like interview style, just like this, like how Seema and I had a conversation today. I will ask some questions and about their topic, and we're going to have a lot of fun. I know it's going to be like a super long day for me, but it's going to be so much fun. And I hope that you guys join. Please help spread the word as well there. Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And Diana, thank you so much for putting your heart and soul into all this beautiful work that you're giving, that you're offering out of the goodness of your heart. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you. And I know that you're such a gift to so many people out there. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Seema, where can people find you?
They can find me mostly on Instagram. They can find me at Seema Sodha. That's my IG
Yeah.
handle. And of course, my website is a possibility,
Yeah.
seemasoda.com. And
Perfect.
yeah, you can find me with Diana next Friday.
Exactly. All right. We hope to see you guys there. And I will get that into like an outro video for you guys. Enjoy.